Welcome, low ego action heroes. This is Debbie Levitt from deltacx.com. We're a full service CX and UX consultancy. We do projects, training, and consulting. So check us out if that interests you. Welcome to episode 155. This is where I'm going to read an article that I wrote, and it is called, hold on, I've already forgotten. You can find it on Medium. It's called UX Research Without a Hypothesis and for products that don't exist. Now, these are two totally separate concepts. Whether or not you have a hypothesis and whether or not your product already exists are two separate concepts. Meow meow Kayleen, how are you? But since these were two questions that I get so much, I decided to bring them together and write one article. So I'm going to read that out loud today. And of course, as always, let's quickly thank everybody who has pressed the join button over on YouTube and supports the channel financially. Thank you to the low ego action heroes paying $3 to $10 a month to support the show. Totally optional, but always appreciated. Yeah, thanks, Kayleen. Hey, Ralitza, I was thinking about you today because we have a guest at our Airbnb. Hey, Lila, thanks for your comments on the other video today. Hi, Shri. And Sheer also. So again, thanks to everybody who is donating. Totally optional, but always appreciated. Those looking to make smaller financial donations can always use on YouTube. Super chat, super stickers, and super thanks. All right, so let's jump in and take a look at the article. As I'm reading it, you are welcome to make comments or ask questions because this is about having a conversation with those of you who happen to be here live. So let's press this button. Is that the right button? Yes. Okay, great. So here's me and the chat room and the optional tip jar, and I think I'm pointing at my screen. And again, if you are not paying for Medium, don't worry about it. You can look up this article from a private browser and you'll still get access to it. All right, here we go. UX research without a hypothesis and for products that don't exist yet. I get asked two things a lot. One, how do you do qualitative UX research without a hypothesis? Two, how can you do research when we don't have an idea, MVP, or product to show someone? What would we learn, and how is this better than just releasing that idea and learning from testing? Research without a hypothesis. Hi, Manuel. Once we learn the scientific method in school, we believe that everything should come with a hypothesis. Restated, we hypothesize that we always need a hypothesis. So why don't I ever create hypothesis statements when doing CX and UX research? Flawed research sets us up for a variety of mistakes in decision-making, prioritization, and solutions. Hypotheses can put you in a box, skew your project, and create bias. This could lead to flawed research. Let's use some examples based on scenarios that I've lived. Hypothesis: our users would like more how-tos around the site. Research or design will then focus on where to put more how-tos and how they should look. But what if users don't want more how-tos? What if they want easier and more intuitive systems? This poor hypothesis will flaw our research and designs. Someone says hi from LinkedIn, but it's not giving me your name, so I'm sorry, I can't tell who it is, but hello. Here's another hypothesis based on a scenario that I've lived. Surfers want a new app to help them coordinate going surfing. A startup I met in 2018 told me they have proven their hypothesis might skew research and design towards encouraging words when, even if that shows a little lift, it might not be the right solution for the problem. We might not have correctly defined the problem. Hi, Niku. Elliot says it's lagging. That's possible. I am on my backup internet since we haven't fixed the main internet. So I apologize if this is a little bit laggy or blippy, but hopefully the sound is pretty good. Okay, so continuing. If we want to go back to, oh, hi, Marcella, or maybe Marcella, if you pronounce it Italianly. If we want to go back to our 5-step scientific method, then remember that the hypothesis is step 3. It's not the first thing we do. Step 1 is research and observe. This means we have knowledge and have replaced guesses and assumptions with good data. Step 2 of the scientific method is ask a question. Step 3 is form a hypothesis that could answer the question. Then you get to testing. Grazie, Marcella. If you start with a hypothesis before your research, you're getting the scientific method out of order. Let me say that again. If you start with a hypothesis, which is step 3 of the scientific method, before your research, which is step 1 of the scientific method, you're getting the scientific method out of order. And you might create flaws or biases because you've already selected a point of view, solution, or possible answer to the question before you've observed and researched. Bad and flawed research can lead to bad hypotheses. If we ran a survey that asked, would you like more how-tos? People might say yes, because why not? Or because they think you want to hear yes. Or because they imagine you won't make the product any better or easier, so we might as well get more how-tos. We might then form a hypothesis that says users want more how-tos, so now we have to figure out where. Be careful of crappy research and crappy hypotheses in any order. Adam says, this is what I call the learn, design, test cycle. Yes, we are supposed to learn first. Many techniques out there are build, test, learn, or build, test, measure, learn, and we really need to be learning first. Okay, so switching over to the other half of the article, how about researching when we don't have an existing product? Especially with all the talk of hypothesis testing, MVPs, and just ship it and get feedback later. Many people are not aware of how or why CX or UX might do research before we have a product to test. Evaluative research evaluates something. We have a solution, idea, concept, prototype, live website, etc. We will evaluate how people use it and where there might be room for improvement. Generative research generates knowledge about people, systems, and contexts. Generative research can help us learn and understand habits, motivations, decision-making, collaborators, environment, knowledge and understanding or lack thereof, tools and workarounds people add to their task, perspectives and mental models, priorities, and lots of why and how for all of the above. Researchers can then analyze and synthesize the data from this research, which is usually observational research like contextual inquiry. This is where we get a detailed task analysis or maybe journey maps, service blueprints, pain points, problems, and opportunities. Generative research is better when it's solution agnostic. We don't want to only meet people who are using our products and services. We want to meet a wide range of people we believe are in our target audience. Then we can watch how they do this now, whatever it is, and ask some follow-up questions. You'll often learn more from people who aren't your customers, since your users have already figured out your system and might even have workarounds for their problems, which makes problems harder to spot. Here are some examples. Our company thinks we want to build an app for surfers coordinating going surfing. All right, run generative research with 15 to 20 surfers, perhaps some frequent surfers and some who do it less often, or some with smaller surfing circles and some with larger surfing circles. Watch how they plan going surfing now. Look for anywhere that's frustrating, confusing, disappointing, or distracting. My 4 horsemen of bad UX, registered trademark. Look for anything that is manually intensive, has high cognitive load, is error-prone, or knowledge-dependent, what I call Larry Marine's task detractors. Research might show that surfers are just fine and don't have a problem for you to solve. Here's another example. We're wondering how Parkinson's patients use fitness wearables to see if there's an opportunity to create something for this target audience. You're not testing a solution. You're researching a population and their behaviors to find insights and possible opportunities. Another example, our target audience doesn't have a bank account and can't afford too much mobile data. How do we help them learn about saving money and then help them save money? Again, research people, behaviors, habits, beliefs. Don't make assumptions. Don't use stereotyping about people of a certain culture, location, or socioeconomic status. Generative research is irreplaceable. The level of detail we learn from generative research can't be replaced by a survey, A/B testing, or checking if people like the MVP we released. The survey is often flawed. A/B testing is for performance, not trying to understand people or their needs. MVP testing is late in the game, reactive, and evaluative. You will reduce your risks and costs if you start with generative research. Instead of build, test, learn, consider models and methods where you learn first, and certainly cycles of learning again and again through the process. Don't try to solve the problem until you use generative research to make sure we understand people, systems, and contexts. I also use generative research when we do have an existing solution, because not all research around existing solutions should be testing the existing solution. For example, users aren't converting enough. Well, according to users, they might be completing their task just fine. Their task didn't include whatever you consider conversion. We should run generative research to better understand their tasks, how they do this now, where there's room for improvement, and what tends to inspire the action you wish they would take. Let's get out of the box and shake off any limits we put on ourselves because we thought we had to have a hypothesis or we had to have a solution or idea first. And scene. That is the article. I'll switch back to a giant me. Hello, it's me. So this could end up a short stream if people don't have questions or comments or anything to add. But of course, if you are here live, I would love to hear, thank you for the applause, Daniel. I would love to hear any questions or comments you have. Of course, won't you please not only subscribe here on the Delta CX YouTube channel so that you can join us for our live streams and know when I put up other videos, but please also consider following me on Medium, since I do write articles from time to time. Right now I'm working more on my book, but I do put up lots of articles throughout the year. David says, this was a gem. Thank you, Debbie. You're welcome, David. I wrote this because I was getting a lot of startup people saying to me like, well, hey, you know, we don't really need research. We can just start putting out ideas, right? And I'd be like, no, you need research first. And they'd be like, how do you research when you don't have something to show them? And I found that this was just something that a lot of startups didn't know about. They really thought that the main or only way to research was to get product out there. And I want to make sure people know that is not the case, especially if you think back to companies that have or used to have R&D departments. That was research and development. Apple spent $21 billion on R&D last year. So that's just a lot of people, usually scientific people, doing a lot of upfront research on where are our opportunities? Where do we think the market is going? Where do we think habits are going? Technology. What could we build for people that would be a great match to them? Kayleen says, tangential. I found a slide deck I made of a biology experiment I did back in 2013. We did research before making a hypothesis. Ha! Yeah, that's because when you learn the scientific method, you learn the 5 steps in order, and hypothesis is number 3. Yazir says, cool, let's get started. Okay, well, I'm done with the article, so I don't know what you're looking at. Hi, Diego. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce your name right. I'm going to give it a bit of an Italian pronunciation. Nolce or is that null C? I'm not sure. I apologize. But the question is, how would this process differ? Oh, let me get the questions up on the screen. How would this process differ from a market research process? Super question. Depending upon how you're doing your market research, sometimes these are quite similar and sometimes these are quite different. So it really depends on who's doing the market research and how they do it, because sometimes there is an overlap with this technique. Sometimes where these are quite different, market research is sometimes a little bit more, it is not as solution agnostic. It's more like, hey, you know, we're thinking about building large amber cups. Let's go out there and see if there's a market for this. Let's go out and learn who else is building amber cups and what kind of market share they have, and what, you know, let's do some surveys and some focus groups and see if there's kind of an appetite for new or different amber cups, and that way we'll know, you know, what we should build. So again, it really depends on the style of market research that's being done, because some of it does look quite close to the UX generative research that I just spoke of, and sometimes it's extremely far away from that, and it's mostly telling people, we have an idea of something we're thinking we're building, would you like it? And very often that's when you get lots of false yeses. So I hope that helps. Nolce, let me know a good pronunciation of your name and if you have a follow-up question. CJ says, wonderful article. Thanks for sharing. You're welcome. A lot of organizations like Agile or Lean UX. Well, they think they like Lean UX, but that's another story. How do you connect those workflow methodologies to research first? Okay, so there's so many interesting things about that, and I've got entire conference presentations on this. And basically, the interesting thing about bad implementations of Agile and bad implementations of Lean is that everybody thinks that to be Agile or Lean, you just have to go as fast as possible. Fast, 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 speed over quality, build something and figure out later if anybody likes it. But yet, if we check with the Agile Manifesto principles, they don't necessarily support that. Agile was originally invented decades ago just to help engineering be more efficient. So number one, Agile is about engineering. It was not invented for UX or how UX works. Now, of course, I have on my to-do list to make a graphic of Tri-Track Agile, and I still haven't done it. So I can't put up Null C. Okay, thank you. The second way you pronounced it was perfect. Thank you. So, so number one, remember, Agile has nothing to do with us. Product managers are not expected to work Agile and in sprints. Company strategists do not work Agile and in sprints. So this is just, Agile is really just for engineering. Now, sometimes engineering tries to take over UX and say, well, we're Agile and you have to be too, but that's a disconnect. Doesn't make a lot of sense. It makes as much sense as us going to engineers and saying, okay, engineers, I know you've got all the work you need to do, but we require you to do user-centered design because that's what we do. Doesn't make sense. Kayleen says, can we yell this from the mountaintops? You can by sharing out this video, especially if you want to mark the time in YouTube and share it from a certain point. I do see more questions coming up. I'll get to those in a moment. Let's just speak to CJ right now. Now, Lean UX is neither Lean nor UX. When the Lean UX book came out, almost every UX practitioner laughed at it and threw it in the garbage. However, it snuck back into our world through some flavors of Agile because the author sold us out and sold Lean UX to Safe Agile and Scrum.org. But in reality, engineering should not be controlling UX. Engineering should not be claiming that UX is part of their domain and that it gets to be democratized and decentralized. It's amazing that UX is supposed to be democratized and decentralized, but nobody else is. So I would say, CJ, I've got about 4.5 hours on this topic. So I would just say, oh, hi, Paul. I would say, please just go to YouTube and look up episodes 115 and 116, which were sister episodes. So just go to YouTube, write Delta CX 115 and 116. Those go into way more detail about these things. So I don't have a short answer for that, but I do want to get to the other question. So hopefully that's a start of some help. Bikash says, how would you do usability testing for a product which doesn't exist, as for healthcare or an IOMT application? Okay, you can't usability test something that doesn't exist. That's just the bottom line. At that point, you're not usability testing. If you have built something, you can usability test that because we're seeing if our concept or work in progress or prototype or whatever it might be is usable. Is it the right solution? Is it the right execution of the right idea? If we don't have a solution yet or something working towards a solution, we cannot usability test it. So I would say again, roll this video back to the beginning and take a look at how you might do generative research so that the right research can inform what they should be designing in that healthcare world. I hope that helps. Ralitza says, I was going to add that you can test the concept with people. It's great to show that in really early stages. Yes, of course, where you have a concept, we can do all kinds of different concept and usability testing, but we cannot do usability testing when it doesn't exist. That, I think, is the bottom line. CJ says, thank you. It's been on my mind the past month. I'll dig into those episodes. Please do. And they're chaptered, so if you like a certain part of them, you can grab the chapter time code and send it to somebody else. Solomon says, Agile is not compatible with traditional UX processes. Change my mind. Well, you're in the wrong channel here. We agree with you. Elvina, good to see you. How have you been? Hi, Debbie. Thank you for the article. Which user research methods might be useful when it comes to learning why people don't convert much on a website? Okay, super question. Elvina, what I would normally recommend when it comes to conversion is generative research, because chances are they're not converting because of something I said in the article. There's a task that they're trying to accomplish that to the user was accomplished, but to us wasn't a conversion. So we might have a situation where what we define a conversion and what the user defines as task accomplished are a mismatch. And so we might not be measuring the right thing. But it might be that we're trying to measure the right thing, and there might be something standing in the way of that. So you could do generative research to learn more about the target audience, their tasks, their unmet needs, the opportunities to build something fresh for them, and their decision-making process, their end-to-end journey, things like that. You could do some evaluative research where you take some current or target customers, run them through whatever this is, and see where it seems to fall apart for them. So I think ultimately, if it is something that exists, we can do evaluative research on it and see where it sucks. But I also would question, do we know enough about the customers and, the old people, contexts, and systems graphic that I like to roll out? Do we really understand this? And that way we can match up good knowledge about users, people, contexts, and systems with what we found when people tried to use our site. Maybe we'll learn that there are some blockers. So I think that you can do a little bit of both in that case. Gabriela says, sadly, I've worked in several contexts where the research is done by the marketing team or done by the product owner or simply not research at all. Absolutely, Gabriela. And that's why I think we have to continue standing up and speaking out when we see this. We have to document it as risk. If we are quiet, then people think this must be okay. Gabriela's not saying anything. Gabriela's manager isn't saying anything. We must keep speaking out, and we must keep saying this is not the right way to do this. And this is risk to our project. And especially if you have a disaster project at your company where that bad research was done and then there were known repercussions or consequences from it, you're going to have to wave that one around a bit and say, hey, remember that project? Remember when we thought users wanted this and so we built it and then we found they didn't? Bad research can point us in the wrong direction. It's important for us to do this well. Kayleen says, Debbie, you've probably answered this, but how would you update your DevOps book? Yeah, so I wrote a book in early 2019 that was meant for engineers, not for us. I don't think I have it handy. Let me see if it's under my desk. No, I think it's on the other side of the room. Oh, I could go walk to the other side of the room. Please hold. Okay, so Kayleen's talking about this book. This was a little pocket book, a little tiny book that I wrote. If you don't have it, please do not buy it. Number one, it's outdated. Number one, I reused the best pieces of it in the Delta CX book. Number three, we've said much more updated things here on the channel in episodes 115 and 116. So this book came out in early 2019, which now feels 5,000 years ago, the year Gimel. And the idea was I was speaking solely at engineering conferences, on a lot of DevOps conferences. And so my joke was, your DevOps are in the intensive care unit. Your developer operations are probably not going to go well unless we improve the results and the outcomes, and we do that through better relationships with UX. So this was aimed at engineers to better understand what the poop UX is and how they work with us. Now, I've updated this a lot since the book. There's things in here that are still very true. I talk about 4 horsemen. I talk about dark patterns. I talk about don't try to get one person to do every UX job. I talk about why shouldn't the product manager wireframe their idea. So there's a lot in here that I would keep. However, I did not really go into the benefits of dual track or especially tri-track agile. I don't think I went there, but I did mostly talk about better collaboration with us and bringing UX into the agile team, as many UX people as possible. I also don't think, and I haven't read my own book in years, but I also don't think I was clear about how many UX people should be on your team, and now I have a little model for that. So those are some things I would change from the DevOps ICU book. The book's not a disaster, and some people who read it liked it, but it could use some updating, though I don't have any plans right now to prioritize updating it when I'm in the middle of writing 3 books. Where am I on the questions? Yeah, I think I'm caught up on questions. And great to see everybody here, and some new names too. Anybody have any other questions or comments about our topic, UX research without a hypothesis, or UX research when we don't have a concept or a product yet? Happy to take a few questions. Otherwise, we will wind down the stream and see everybody tomorrow for critical thinking. Thank you, Elvina. Good to see you again. Oh, that didn't come up on the screen. I don't know why not. It should have. Let me refresh my chat. Let's see if we can get them to come up a little bit better. Okay, hopefully these will come up. So yeah, just let me go through next week's schedule. So tomorrow is critical thinking. Monday is going to be Think Out Loud. We are still working on the Florida bar exam website. Tuesday is going to be office hours, Ask Us Anything. I have a special guest. I have to double check that it's still a good day for her. But if it is a good day for her, it will be Julia DeBari, who's one of our favorites. No show on Wednesday the 29th. Thursday I wasn't going to have a show because it's Darren's Chit Chat networking time. So not as many shows next week. Okay, we've got something for hello, Hamad. Elvina says, do you think there are situations when we don't need much research? No. No. Yeah, sorry. So it's a question. To me, the only time we don't need much research is when we just did research. And we have a lot of great qualitative information about, you know it, people, contexts, and systems. We understand the pain points, opportunities, and insights. We've prioritized them. We are ready for action. We're ready to be strategic. We're ready to be tactical. We're on it. So yeah, I probably, I can't think of a time when we don't need much research. Research is always helpful, and in my opinion, always worth it. Sometimes there isn't time or budget, so we might have to find a way to reduce it or change something about it. That is not optimal, but you know, we do have to be flexible sometimes, but always a good time for research. Hey, Ader. Yasir says, where does UI UX team fit in agile environment? Please see episode 116. I do not have a short answer to that. The best answer is try track agile and episode 116. So I would say please go to YouTube and type Delta CX 116. That is the best answer as of now for that. But yeah. CJ says, good question, Elvina. I agree. Any other thoughts or questions? I'm happy to do a short stream. These are short for us. We usually go on and on. Also a reminder, if you would like to send something in for some of our streams where you can send things in ahead of time, just check out deltacx.com/links. That's got all the links related to the stream, the event calendar, how to join our free Slack workspace, how to send something in for Tuesday office hours, how to send something in for Friday critical thinking, how to send something in for Monday. So just hit deltacx.com/links. And of course, don't forget to subscribe here on YouTube because I'm shadow banned and I really need the organic growth. Please find some UXers and future UXers and let them know about the channel. Okay, we've got a question from Paul. And it says, one question is, what is hypothesis in UX? I remember designing my portfolio and I looked at other portfolios and I saw the word hypothesis. I just copied it, but I didn't really understand it. Boo! Hey, if there's a word you don't know, Google it. Hypothesis is a very common word. I'm hoping that if you Google it, you'll understand it. Don't just copy words, because I can absolutely tell in portfolios when people are using words that they don't understand. The word I see misused the most is agile. Also, empathy. So yeah, definitely don't just use a word because you saw someone else use it. We are critical thinkers and we are not copycats. So I'm seeing it now and I don't understand it. Sorry if it's a beginner question. Yeah, it's not so much that it's a beginner question. I think it's a question that's Googleable. So I always think that my value is the things that are harder to Google. But technically a hypothesis is, it is from the Greek language. I like to joke it's Greek for guessing, but that's not really what it means. A hypothesis is an idea or a concept that we have that would answer a question that we've created. So if you Google scientific method, you will learn that first we observe or research something. We find something out about people, the world, the market, technology, something. And then we go, I have a question about that type of thing. And the hypothesis is the possible answer. Then you get to testing. Is my hypothesis true? Is the opposite of my hypothesis true? Is any part of my hypothesis true? So the hypothesis is basically a fancy word for, I think I have a guess or an idea of an answer or a solution or something that might solve a problem, but of course it comes after you've solved the problem. So you'll typically see hypothesis used in UX portfolios when people are making some guesses and assumptions about things people do. Now, if you watch this video from the beginning, you'll hear why I don't want you to do that. I don't want you to make hypotheses about what people do before you do your research, because you could skew your own research. So go back and watch the video from the beginning. I tried Googling it, but I didn't find a definition in relation to UX. Yes, and you might not, because it comes from the scientific method and it comes from science. So in this case, it's okay to use the more general definition of hypothesis. UX doesn't have a special definition of hypothesis. We are using the science one because UX is very based in science. Adair says, do we always start off research based on a hypothesis, or do we research first and then come up with one, or both? Yeah, so if you're just joining the stream late, we covered this from the beginning. So roll it back, watch from the beginning. But I am always suggesting research first. That is the scientific method. Whether or not you believe in the scientific method, or whether or not you learned it in school the way we did in America and some other countries do, it still makes sense to have knowledge and understanding first before trying to make guesses or propose a possible solution. You want to start out solution agnostic and do some research so that we have knowledge. Kayleen says, I do feel what Ugo Chukwu is saying. I find it cognitively exhausting to Google UX-related things. Yeah, and in his case, even though I'm saying, hey, Google it, he expected there to be a specific UX definition of hypothesis, and there isn't, and I can see how that would be really confusing. So at least you've got me to ask, even if I start out by saying, did you Google that? Abby says, we believe that Debbie is having 10 black t-shirt. Now this needs to be validated. I have many black t-shirts, but they're all different. This is my t-shirt of the band Dark Horse White Horse. So yes, I have many black t-shirts, but they're all different because they have print on them. So yes, you can hypothesize, you could say, gee, I've observed that Debbie wears a lot of black shirts. My hypothesis is Debbie's wardrobe is only black shirts. Let's pretend we came up with that as our hypothesis. Now, we would need to test that hypothesis. What research, so it almost cycles back to research. What research would we need to do to prove or disprove our hypothesis? Well, someone would need to look through my clothing and find that half of my shirts are black. Now your hypothesis is false. It's been invalidated. And you can say, okay, I've got new information. We went through Debbie's shirts and only half of them were black. Okay, so I'm now going to hypothesize Debbie is into death metal. Okay, we can find these things out. So remember, a hypothesis is something that we haven't yet proven or disproven or validated or invalidated. It needs to be tested or researched further. That is usually the difference. Nulsi says, what if the client already has a hypothesis? How do you blend that with good UX practice? You would have to build that into some of your research planning and see if you can prove or disprove it. So for example, if the client has a hypothesis, we think our clients really need pink highlighters. Then you might say, okay, I'm going to plan some research that would learn more about how people use highlighters. And let's see if they need highlighters. Do they use them? How do they use them? Do they use pink ones? Do they need a pink one? So you can end up, even though they've jumped to the hypothesis, which is not great, we can still design some research. I wouldn't jump into testing, but we can design research that, again, look at people, contexts, and systems and see if that hypothesis could be wholly true, partially true, or not true at all. Paul says, thank you for your answer. That means hypothesis is a waste of time in UX. We should research first. Yeah, so I wouldn't do hypothesis first. Some people do hypothesis in the middle. That could be okay, but I'm warning people against hypothesis first or a hypothesis that guides the research. Because again, if you start the video from beginning, you'll see that sometimes we go into research with a hypothesis and it skews the research. If we go into research assuming people love pink highlighters and they really need them, we might accidentally write research that proves people like pink highlighters. Maybe we make a screener survey where we only meet people who love pink highlighters. We could certainly accidentally validate our own hypothesis through some flawed research practices. So in my opinion, by starting research without a hypothesis and without a possible solution, we hopefully leave ourselves open to not accidentally trying to prove ourselves right. Okay, I hope this helps. Any other thoughts, questions, things? Clearing out some emails. PM mostly comes with hypothesis. That's true. Many people in our company will start with hypothesis first. It is sometimes hard to talk them out of that, but again, we can always plan research that can prove or disprove this. I'm working with somebody now who's kind of doing that. The product manager had a whole bunch of hypotheses, started running with solutions and an MVP, and now she's doing research, and now she's realizing, wow, a lot of the assumptions or hypotheses that the product manager had weren't true. So to me, it's never too late to learn some good stuff. You just hope that your company will go, oh, that's what's happening? Okay, let's change our plans. Let's shift our gears. Gabriella says, first time participating in the live version. I enjoyed it. Thank you, Debbie. Well, thanks for coming. I usually do them at 6:30 p.m. Italy time, so come on down. I missed Elvina's question, she says. Oh, no. Let me see. Rolling back. Oh, if we derive hypotheses, thank you, Elvina. If we derive hypotheses from desk research and then go to test them, is this a biased approach? Absolutely. I see this done a lot, especially from boot camps. And what happens is the desk research basically doesn't necessarily tell you what your target audience is doing. Sometimes the desk research is, I want to Google what's happening with people buying new cars. Okay, here's what's happening with people buying new cars, according to somebody else. But it doesn't replace the good research you could do that is better recruited with the right people. So I see a lot of portfolios where people say, yeah, I Googled, and it looks like some people are having trouble finding certain foods right now because of logistics problems and supply chain problems. So now that I know that some people are having problems finding food, here's all my hypotheses. And I go, okay, if you're now going to do the research that proves or disproves that, okay, but again, you run the risk that you create the research that proves what you're saying because you're kind of hoping to be right. People naturally want to be right, and many people are like that, and that's normal, but it can definitely make your research go kind of funky. So be careful of desk research and Googling and things like that, because if you're not researching with your own company's data, and you're just Googling the general public, they may not be your target audience. And now you've got some skewed data or skewed ideas. Ader says, I like to sell research using evaluate instead of validate. I don't know, seems to skew it a little bit towards the right way to approach it. Ader, I totally agree. I try not to use words like validate or invalidate, especially because there's a whole rainbow of things that could happen, not just validate or invalidate. And also because I find that very often people will say, we want to validate this idea, and they absolutely mean we want to validate this idea. We want to specifically design research, run research, interpret research to validate the idea and make it look good. So I do try to use more neutral language around research. I just talk more about, hey, we want to find insights, opportunities, and unmet needs. That's what we're doing here. You could say evaluate if it's evaluative. If it's generative, you might not say evaluate. But yeah, I do try to stay away from validate and invalidate because it's also a touchy subject because, as many people have mentioned in the chat today, if you have that stakeholder or product manager or somebody who has that horse in the race and is in love with their own idea, when you invalidate their idea, it can mean conflict. It can mean some ugly stuff because that person might feel embarrassed. That person might feel put down. That person might feel all kinds of things, justified or not, because their idea turned out to not be right. And so we have to be careful. We want to make sure that we're focused on the idea not being a good fit for this particular target user at this time, not, hey, Sam, your idea ended up being wrong. Take the person out of it, focus on what you're researching. And yeah, do be careful of words like validate or invalidate, partially because it's a spectrum of things and not just black and white, and partially because we're not just researching to validate an idea. We're researching to learn, again, pain points, unmet needs, opportunities, room for improvement. We're not just validating or invalidating and saying, research done, we validated. Hater says, yeah, tell me I'm right. Yeah, there's a lot of that. And it's unfortunate. Abdul Basit says, nice session, Debbie. Thank you. Hold on, I've put it up on the screen. In some studies where the subject area is highly sensitive, after studying journals, past events, and more, would it be right to schedule interviews with secondary contacts, people close to the end user that could give valuable insights? To me, secondary contacts are one of two things. They're either plan B, because we couldn't get the primary people themselves, or they're secondary in kind of a voice of the customer way. And again, that's another Googleable thing, VOC, voice of the customer. So sometimes I do talk to the secondary people to get another perspective, but you have to remember that they're seeing things through their lens. They might be changing things a little bit based on how they see things, but it can be good to talk to customer support reps, the sales reps who hear that people don't want to do business with us. So it can be good to talk to the secondary contact people, but we have to remember that's not primary research and that it's still best to do primary research where we can. Marcella says, thanks for this chat. I will be sharing your channel with my discussion group in my master's program. Thank you. I hope you will. Thank you. Please ask them to subscribe. I'm live usually 4 times a week. We have no sponsors, no affiliate links, and almost nothing to sell you other than sometimes I run a workshop or do something interesting. Oh, by the way, who wants a sneak preview that my October conference is now open for registration? Go to deltacx.com/concentric, CONCENTRIC. It is a whole week in October of workshops, and it is very affordable, and in some cases space is limited. So check out the Concentric 2022 conference. Registration is open. Tell everybody about that. Tell the master's program. Tell all the people. Okay, I've got a few more minutes here, so if anybody does want to ask any more questions, I'm still here to answer them. Otherwise, remember, Tuesday is office hours Ask Me Anything. I'm here for an hour taking your questions live. All questions are welcome, and you can also send them anonymously. If you want to send them anonymously ahead of time and be one of the first questions that's answered on Tuesdays, you can visit deltacx.com/links and find the way to send in the office hours questions. Since I do save those and do them in the order I get them usually. All right, so, I'm so sleepy, but I have another call tonight. And then I will roll into bed. That's because it's nighttime here in Italy. All right, then I'm going to roll on out of here. And thanks to everybody who joined today, especially some new people or people joining live for the first time. Great to see you part of things here. Again, you can join our Slack workspace as well. You can follow my Medium world. And otherwise, I'll see everybody tomorrow for the Practicing Critical Thinking stream, where we rip to pieces articles and social posts that you send in. Alrighty, have a great day or evening, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Customer centricity as business intelligence. Visit deltacx.com to learn why we are